Alright everyone, it's time for Occult Literature, video number 306, Lucasta, Parables and Poems. This is by Arthur Edward Wade, actually. He's most well known for the Rider-Waite Tarot deck and for his book of ceremonial magic, and he did an anthology of English fairy poetry, actually, that I kind of want to read and also edit, but I'm working through a couple of his shorter works first. Link in the description of my edition of this work on Amazon. It's 70 pages, so it's a fairly short read. And it's multiple bits of poetry, actually, in this. Second and third links to my books, blogs. I'm not 100% sure where to put this one. I guess in the occult fiction section, technically. This is inspired by the typical fairy poem sort of folkloric material that Waite was involved with. But most people don't realize he actually made quite a few short poems of his own. In fact, I'm editing another work as we speak that'll be available in a week or so. That has almost like a short play. It's in little acts with settings and everything, and it's a fairy poem. Now, the reason that I'm editing these, because typically, even if it's got occult overtones, poetry to me isn't strictly necessarily in the occult realm. Number one is funny. Actually, Lucasta was the pet name he gave to his first wife, who died in the 20s. I think he remarried shortly thereafter. This is literally named after her. But these are strictly occult in nature. It's not just an overtone so much as he's replicating the same kind of flow and cant and so forth as the fairy poetry of the era that he was actively studying at the actual time. Poetry and also theater, I've noticed more and more to be overlapped with magic. Now, part of this is a no-brainer. You know, with poetry, you're trying to change human emotion, portray things, get people to think of scenes and so forth, even if it's not in a theatrical performance. And so technically you're manipulating people's sensory apparatus through doing that. With plays, it's even more focused. Sometimes you have, you know, entire plays about witches and stuff like that. Number one, you have Faust, with the bargain with Lucifer and so forth. You can get that kind of theater performance. Number two, there's an element of deception, of course. Depending on what kind of theater performance there is. In fact, the visual effects were first used in ancient Greek plays anyway. They had entire machines that they've, in some cases, replicated to show water and ships and weird stuff in the background and dragons swinging around and all these things that were nothing more than ropes and pulleys with cut-out wooden figures on gear systems, and they were semi-automated. You'd have a person cranking the apparatus, it'd go through the whole play. I find this fascinating. I've noticed that especially the Theosophists, when they were analyzing things, there's a huge focus on some theater performances. Shakespeare takes an outsized role, and so I really have become more into it. I've gotten more interested in plays and poetry and so forth anyway more in the last few years, but Wade is actually a tolerably good poet. Mostly rhyming materials, which I appreciate more than things that don't rhyme. It just helps to create a mood, in my opinion, as opposed to maybe the short story style of format you get with certain poets. And Waite also, again, he did create several short compilations of this material that I'm going through. I think this is the better of the two. He had, the other one's a lyric from Fairyland, which is the one that I'm finishing now. It's good. I like the one that's more theatrical. The other shorter poems are a little bit more dry. And there's a huge focus in his material. It goes past romance in the sense of actual romance and starts to relate that to mortality, and he draws from that additional symbolism, often having to do with the seasons. That's the case in multiple poems in this particular work. The idea of voyaging, especially in an aquatic sense, for some reason seems to hold some sort of allure to him, and so it's definitely highly recommended. If you like the occult and you like poetry, this is sort of the work for you. Again, linked to in the description of my edition of this work on Amazon. Second and third links to my books, blogs. I will be making a blog post for it, and happy reading. That's about all. Peace out.